Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, we'll give it a few more minutes as we know people are coming into the room.
Morning, Kyle.
Still see some folks coming in. Give it just maybe one more minute. All right, good size group, 90 and counting. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Since we do have quite a bit of participants in this session, if you could please stay on mute so there's no disruption of background noise while we're doing the session. And I would ask that we ask questions. I'm sure there'll be a Q&A break during the session, and then also utilize chat for questions that you may have. We will have somebody moderating the chat. For those that may not know me, my name is Marina Manzano, and I am the Director of Procurement here at Cal State University, Bakersfield. And what the training session today will be for the Procure to Pay system, which will replace how we are currently submitting and processing requisitions and direct pays. We are moving away from the manual forms and processing purchase orders and vouchers in CFS and moving over to a new system, CSU by Procure to Pay, that the Chancellor's Office is leading. And with that, let me go ahead and introduce our trainer slash presenter today. We have Chris Dotz from Rise Now, which is the consulting group that is supporting the campuses in the implementation and configuration of this system.
All right, thanks, Marina. So I'm going to share my screen. Good morning to everybody. So what we're going to do today is kind of go back and forth between PowerPoints and demos. Let me make sure that you are seeing the right thing here. Are you seeing the campus customers PowerPoint?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I'll get started here. This is what we're going to do today in the next, hour and a half, is it? Just give you a brief introduction to the system and shopping. You know, some of the stuff might look familiar to you if you have seen or have been using the P-Card Marketplace. It's the same platform. So how to shop through punch outs and then other types of shopping you could do outside of punch outs. We call them forms. Then we'll get into what happens when you submit your order. We do have approvals now in the system. Those approvals will go through your business processes as needed, including your procurement or purchasing folks and all that. And at the end of the workflow, if all approved, we get POs. Once the POs get sent out to the supplier automatically, we have a receiving process. Could be different between goods and services. I'll go into that. And then we'll end today with the reporting of how to get information out of the system. So let's see if this works. Copy the link. So are you guys, did you hear that? Is the video, is the sound working this time? No. You can't hear that? Okay,
No.
shoot. I think that has to do with, this happened the other day. Let me unshare, stop sharing. Share sound. Try that.
With an update.
You hear that? Okay, cool. So I guess old Steve here is CSU's Executive Vice Chancellor and Chief Financial Officer. And this is a message, kind of a general message for all you, I guess.
Hello, I am happy to provide you all with an update on the California State University CSU BUY program. CSU BUY is the implementation of strategic, standardized procurement processes that allow for the elimination of manual touchpoints and steps, resulting in efficiencies through automation, risk mitigation, and cost savings for our 23 universities. To prepare for the launch of CSU BUY, we have scheduled training sessions to introduce you to the system and to build your confidence and process knowledge. In addition to these training sessions, we want to ensure a smooth transition to CSU BUY by providing ongoing support resources. So first, we will be offering post-go-live office hours for you to attend where CSU BUY experts will be available to provide virtual assistance and address any questions as we start using CSU BUY. In addition, links to short support videos and quick reference guides will be provided to reinforce training fundamentals and help guide you through the system. These materials can be accessed on demand by visiting the CSU BUY Training and Resources page on the CSU BUY site. And finally, your assigned campus facilitator has firsthand experience with CSU BUY and a unique understanding of your specific campus's processes. They have gone through extensive training and will be able to assist you as you get to know CSU BUY. If you have any questions, please contact your campus project team who can answer or facilitate resolution. We are thrilled to introduce you to CSU BUY and look forward to your active participation in the training sessions. Have a great day.
Right. Okay. Okay, so the format we're going to be doing in the next hour and a half is basically go through the content, which is really the PowerPoint slides, and then go back and forth between the PowerPoint and the actual system. We'll be in the test system today, but the production system should look very familiar once you get used to the test system. So we're going to go through first. First part is going to be the overview. What is CSU BUY? Go through the basic navigation in the site, searching and reporting. We'll touch on it now. We'll touch on it again later on in the training, and then also how to search for suppliers within the system. Okay. So this is explaining what CSU BUY is. We want to make sure everybody's comfortable with why we're doing this. Identify how it's going to help you in your day-to-day activities and your role. Explain how you're going to log into the system, and also how to locate some help within the app as well as outside of it for when that's going to be needed. So I'll let you read this. This is Chancellor's Office put this together, the definition of CSU BY. I'll give you a minute. Okay. So who uses it? We're going to go, we're going to be starting off with your, mostly for you guys, I think it's requesters. There's a difference between shoppers and requesters. I don't think you're using, actually I'm getting a video issue, so let me stop my video. Okay. So I think you're just going to be using requesters, which are the people, probably you folks, ones that shop and submit orders. We're also going to be introducing approvers into the mix now. I think with the P-card marketplace that a lot of you have been using, it goes right from a punch out to the cart to an order. Now we're going to introduce the approval process, which does include procurement in some cases. And then we are also doing an accounts payable module for your vouchers and receipts and the matching and all that kind of thing. So it's a full end-to-end system. So how's it change your role? Well, hopefully it'll improve it. You know, you'll be able to shop from a punch out, but you'll also not be limited to punch out catalogs. For those of you who don't know what that is, I'll explain in a minute. You'll also have a lot of visibility into your orders and the history and where they stand and payment information and so forth. A lot of transparency in CSU BY that we built in. So hopefully that'll help you in your day-to-day duties. We'll also be using receipts and voucher verification for goods and services. Again, I'll go into that in a bit, but we do want to make sure things have been received, whether it be services or goods, prior to payment. So part of that's going to be you guys, some of it's going to be your central receiving. So logging in, again, similar to the marketplace, if you're using that today, there's going to be a link that you're provided. It's called a single sign-on, but you don't have to know that. It's just you don't have to worry about a new password. We have your IDs, including your roles and other things, incorporated into the system. So when you click on this link, the system will know who you are and what role you are and what business unit you're in and so forth. So it should be pretty seamless. That being said, I'm not a CSU person, so you're not going to see me doing that. I'll be using a password today in the demo, but just don't worry, you don't have to do that. That's just a local login for contractors. So within the site, and I'll try and remember to point this out. There's help all throughout. Little question marks here and there. Some of it's customized, a lot of it is not to CSU. It's just built into the system, but there is help here and there within the system to, you know, if you're not sure what a field is, for example, what a field means or what a notification is for, you can just click on the help inline and it should tell you. If you reach a point though, whether it be within the app or maybe a process or something like that you're not sure of, there will be a couple local CSU Bakersfield admins that you can contact. You'll also be provided some training materials as well, quick reference guides and that kind of thing to help you along. So hopefully that'll make it an easy transition. So big overview of what we're doing today. We're going to shop, we're going to check out, we're going to show the approval process, and then the system creates the purchase order. Most of you folks are going to be involved in the first two, I guess they're circles here. Shopping and checking out. Checking out's a little bit more, I don't know, not complicated, but there's more to do on the checkout screen that you'll see. We're introducing accounting fields and that kind of thing. So the checkout process is going to be a little bit more steps than it is in the P-card marketplace, although I'll show you how you can reduce those steps through setting defaults. So navigation, we'll go into the site in a minute. Show you the shopping dashboard, which is kind of your home base when you log into CSU BUY. Go into your user profile as well. There's reasons for that. You should know where it is anyway, but there's some things that you might want to change or update in your user profile to make shopping easier, and you might want to customize your notifications and so forth. I'll touch on the search feature as well. So this is actually a screenshot from production. When I go into the demo, this will look very similar, although the colors might be a little different. The colors are a little different. We do that on purpose, but basically this is your shopping homepage. Again, the P-Card Marketplace probably looks fairly similar. It's running on the same platform called Jagger. So if you hear the word Jagger that I slip into once in a while, that's for you guys, CSU BUY. So we have, your little widgets, your shop widget, your quick links and so forth. Hopefully making everything that you're going to, at least most of the things you're going to be doing day to day, easy to find right on your dashboard. Screenshot here is of your A user profile. Again, I'll be going into this in a minute, so I won't stay on this too long, but this is just how you get to your user profile from that little head on the top, all the way on the top right. Click that head and go to view my profile, and you'll be on this screen. And within your user profile are system notification preferences, which you can modify yourself. These are emails and notifications coming from CSU BUY to you in your email for things that you might want to be aware of. And I'll get into that as far as how those are set. All right, so let's get into it. So I'm going to go into the site now, the test system. I'm going to kind of give you a brief overview of the dashboard and the menu options and all that, go into your profile as well. Okay, so I'm logged in here as a requester. So that's basically somebody who shops and submits orders. When you go into, in a couple of weeks, when this goes live and you go in here, you're going to come to this page basically. I think this blue is black in production, but it's the same. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's just the color. So when you first get into it, these icons are going to appear like this, collapsed. It's to save desktop space. When you go in, if you're not sure what these are, I mean, you could hover over them and it'll tell you this is orders and this is shopping and so forth. You could also, there's an arrow down at the bottom left here. Easy to miss, but it's there. Click on it, it'll expand it just to show the words. And it'll remember that. So if you log out and log back in, it'll remember that you want to see the words. So that's kind of handy. Whenever you want to get back to this home page, just click this icon, CSU BUY, or click the home. As you go throughout the site, these menu items don't go away, so they'll always be there. So you could always hit home to get back to your shopping dashboard. On the left, you have some flyout menu options, and these are going to be different based on your role. If I think most of the folks here are going to be requesters, you're going to see these similar options. System admins or buyers, they might have more. But you can actually go in and start getting used to where things are. Some of them will apply to you, some of them might not. Sourcing events, I mean, it doesn't, we're not using that yet. We just can't get rid of it. If you're ever not sure where a menu item is, for example, you want to go to search suppliers, you can also search your menu here, and it'll find all the different menu options, so you don't have to go searching through the flyouts. So on the dashboard, this white part is the dashboard. We have what are called widgets. First one is the org message. This is going to be tailored by system administrators, and it could be Bakersfield specific if needed. The reason for this is for announcements, or we can put hyperlinks to training or policy documents or anything you want. Your system admins will manage this for you, but hopefully, like if the system is scheduled to go down, or if there's a new catalog or something like that they want you to be aware of, it'll be here in the org message. So it's really read only for you guys unless there's a link. Some quick links here, easy ways to get to these menu options. So you don't have to go looking for them. Instead of going searching for where's my requisitions, just click the link, gets to the same place. There's also CSU by help here as well, which will launch some help information for you. There's a shop at the top. Basically a keyword search. There are approvals, and even though you're requesters, you do have some approval responsibilities on the voucher side. Again, I'll get into that, why you have that, but anything in here is something that is waiting for you. So it's personalized, okay? As you go into it, and if you approve it, it'll disappear from here. So this is kind of an action item widget. Some more quick links here, and then we have some form requests, and these are showcases for shopping. Form requests are for when you can't use a punch out for whatever reason, either the supplier doesn't support a punch out catalog, or maybe it's an item that's not in a catalog, but you know it still needs to be procured. You can use these forms, and I'll be demoing a couple of these, not all of them, but I'll be demoing these in a little bit. And then again, if you're using the marketplace today, your punch out catalogs are down below. For those who don't know what these are catalogs that we've stood up for selected vendors who can support them. You basically click on it and it'll punch you out, hence the name, to that vendor's catalog, which is CSU specific. So it's not their public site. It's really a customized site, which kind of has the same branding as their public site, but it's got your prices, your products, anything in there should be approved. The idea is, and I'll show you in a minute, you punch out, you put a shopping cart together. When you're ready, you bring that shopping cart back into CSU by. Reasons for that is we want to capture the accounting structure for the order. We want to use the approvals. We want to have all the spend in one place for reporting purposes. So it's a bunch of reasons why we don't just go out to, I don't know, the Grainger site and order from there. Okay, so that's basically your shopping dashboard. Up at the top here, there's some searching you can do. If you want to search for, I don't know, POs or requisitions or whatever, this is one way to do it. You can put the PO number here and and search. There's other ways I'll show you. You can see your shopping cart is here. If you want to bookmark a certain page, you can do that. Say you're always going to your requisitions page and you don't want to have to click over here or something, you can always do a quick bookmark here. Then you have action items and notifications. Action items are things you need to take action on, things waiting for you. Things like, hey, maybe there's a voucher waiting for your approval, that verify that you received it. Notifications are more of an FYI. You don't have to necessarily do anything. It's just an informational kind of thing that goes with the notifications I'm about to show you in your user profile. So let me go to my user profile, and you can see here you can't really edit a lot of the user profile. It's because it's all locked down. A lot of it is locked down because it's coming from your system on the CSU side to bring over your user information, your role, what BU are you, your email address, and so forth. You can see what role you are right here. I'm not sure why I'm facilities right now, but this should just be a requester. Most of the folks on the phone here will be requesters. And then if you want to get deep into looking at what permissions are turned on for you and all that, you can't change them, but there's a lot of permissions. The permissions are basically make up the roles. So a role is a set of permissions. The requester role has some on, some off. X means off. I mean, you could get into this if you want. You could click on, I mentioned the online help. You could click on it here. Really informational. You should all be able to do what you need to do based on your role. There's been a lot of work done with that. So if you feel like looking at these, there's a lot of them. That's your call. Things you can do though. when you go to place an order, there's going to be some required fields. Things like your accounting fields, your your ship to, not your ship to, your deliver to location. And maybe even your ship to address, your bill to address. Those can be set up as defaults. The reason why you'd want to do this, and it is recommended when you first get into the system, I would recommend going into your profile and starting to populate these. Your deliver to location, for example, central receiving wants to know, okay, we received a package, where's it supposed to go? So all of Bakersfield's deliver to addresses are in here. We have over 1,600 of them. So you can go and find your favorite deliver to, or maybe, multiple if you want, and add them to your profile. So if you select one and hit add values, it'll appear in your profile. If you make it default, which is recommended, it'll auto-populate. That's one less click you have to do when you put a cart together. Now, when you put an order together, you can always override this. You're just putting a default in. Doesn't mean that you're dedicated to that for every order going forward. But if 98% of the time you're using this administration EASE deliver to, I'd put it in your profile as a default. And then just remember, you have to override it if a particular order is supposed to go somewhere else. And that's the same with your fund and department ID. Your fund and department ID, part of your chart string. A lot of users, most of the time, they're using the same as fund, for example, or department ID. If that's the case, come in here and add it into your profile and make it a default. To do that, you can search for another value, and you can search through, you can even search through a description. You don't have to know the code. And it'll give you all funds in this case with library. And then you can click on it, add the value, and then make it the default if you want. So you can have multiple, if you have maybe 4 or 5 funds that you use a lot, make them your favorites. Maybe one could be a default, or maybe none of them could be default. You don't have to have a default. It just makes it easier when you shop. You don't have to go searching through the hundreds of thousands of funds in this example. So that's basically how you add default custom, we call them custom fields, accounting codes. If you change your mind, click on it, just hit remove. You're not taking it away from the system, you're just taking it off your profile. And you'll see how this populates in the cart when I put an order together in a bit. Same with ship to addresses. Usually you're going to have a default to your campus receiving. Go in here and add it. There's ship to addresses already in here. You guys only have 2. So most people will be campus receiving, your central receiving. Same with the bill to, I believe you only have 1 bill to anyway. Yeah, so that should default it either, whether you do this or not. So when you first go into your profile, I would set these up. Your default accounting fields, your deliver to address, and your ship to address, so that you don't have to do that every time you place an order. Don't have to populate those.
How many accounting codes can you have as a default?
You can only have 1 default, but you can have some favorites. So if you want to add to this, you can have as many favorites as you want. It just makes searching for them easier. They'll be in a short drop down instead of having to search every time through how many thousands you have, as an option. But only one of them will be default. If you don't want it to default, you can have just favorites, and you'd have to select them every time. So I mentioned notifications from the system before. When you log in, you're going to be associated to 1 or more roles automatically, and that's based on how we have your user ID set up. You'll also inherit best practice notifications coming from the system. Now they're best practice because we think people will want certain ones on and certain ones they don't care about, but just know you have the opportunity to change them if you want to. So say I'm an approver and I want to know when something hits my approval queue, I'm going to want this one on. And if I'm not sure what this is, just hit the help. Now for you folks, you probably won't have approvers, approval rights, at least on the requisition side, so you won't worry about that. If you ever decide you're getting too many emails, edit this and say, maybe I want to turn on this, somebody assigned me a cart. I want to turn this off. I could just hit none. None means I'm not going to get that notification. So your choices are getting it through email, getting it through a notification, which is this top little guy up here on the top right, or both. For approvers, for example, we turn both of them on. Now, if an approver is in the system all the time and they're always looking at their approval queue, they'll probably want to turn this off. Somebody in procurement, like a buyer, would probably turn this off because they're always in the system. But no, you're going to inherit best practice notifications, but you could always override them. And this you could probably do weeks after go live, as you get used to the system and you start seeing these emails that are coming in that you're just ignoring, go turn them off. Or for that matter, if something happened that you should have been aware of that you kind of just kind of slipped by you might want to see if there's a notification you could turn on for that. Okay, so let me go back to the PowerPoint, see where we are. So I just did that demo, notification preferences, profile, did a little tour. Let's start looking at searching. As I said before, one of the best features I think of CSU BUY is transparency. When you place an order, it doesn't go into limbo. You have full visibility into where it stands, who's sitting on it. You have payment information if a vendor calls about your PO. So I'll show you how to locate requests and orders. This is basically some screenshots. How you can go in and search. This is actually a supplier search here. So you can search suppliers. But this is basically a purchase order search screen. And again, I'll demo this, so I'm not going to sit on here, but all the searches kind of look similar. And I'll show you how and why you might save a search. So let's do that. Going back into the app. So say I'm logged in as a requester. I want to go search my requisitions. I could just click here. So these are all the requisitions that this particular end user who's logged in right now, in this case it's me, placed. You can see the status of them, completed or pending. Completed means the order has completed requisition workflow. Pending means it's sitting in workflow. So say I want to see, okay, this one's pending right here. Let me see what's going on with it. I can click on it. And on the right side here, I can see my workflow. We'll talk more about workflow in a bit, but I can actually see not only what step it's in, but who is basically needing to approve it. And it'll sit here indefinitely until one of these two people approve it. Oops. So in requisitions, I'm not limited to my own requisitions. I can see anybody within your business unit. There's filters. The cool part, this is requisitions, but the cool part is this search works the same for requisitions, purchase orders, vouchers, receipts, all types of transactional documents. So you can get used to it. It's got quick filters on the left. And these filters will be different depending on the type of document it is, whether it be a voucher or a PO or requisition, for example. You can narrow it down by supplier. You can see this user has access to multiple BUs within Bakersfield, who ordered it, so forth, even what workflow step it's currently in. The idea is this is going to have thousands and thousands and thousands of requisitions and POs pretty soon, and you want to narrow it down. Again, the P-Card Marketplace has this functionality. that's a very simple process of placing an order and having it go to a PO. This one will have different things because it's got workflow involved and so forth. Even AP is going to be involved on the invoice side. Know that when you first get in here, every time it's defaults to 90 days. We can't help that. That's how the software is built. You can always change it to say all or narrow it down. Say you want to see last month orders. It's just going to filter it down. Let me stop there. I'm going to get more into searching later, but this is basically kind of to show you how the transparency works in the system, how you can have full visibility into where things stand. Searching for suppliers, same idea. You should be able to go in and search for suppliers to order from a supplier. They have to be enabled, they have to be active, so they have to be set up. We'll get into the supplier request process in a bit. So, this is just a screenshot of a supplier search. You can see the active suppliers that are shoppable, basically. So what that looks like is, if I go to shop and then go to, suppliers. This is that screen here. Right now, this is our test system. We don't have a lot of suppliers enabled. You can see these icons. If you hover over them, you can see if it's a punch out catalog or not. And if it's not, it's a forms catalog. But there's also ways to do this within the form itself. And I'll show you in the, say in the goods and services form, how you can see which suppliers are enabled for yourselves. I'll show that in a minute. All right, so let's get into your shopping. We'll start from a punch out catalog. I'll follow it through to checking out, again, which you do today if you're using a P-Card Marketplace, but it's going to be a little more robust. We'll also give you a different option that you don't have today, shopping using a form. So this is what we're going to do. Locate the punch out, add items from the punch out, and then return those back into CSU Buy. So I showed you the widget where your showcase where your punch outs are. Let me go and demo that. So from your shopping page, your punch outs are towards the bottom, and it's good to get familiar with them because then you'll know who's enabled and who's not. It might look a little bit different in production, but these are a lot of the ones are going to be in production are going to be here in test, not all of them. So say I wanted today, I got an order placed with Waxy. So I have to know not only that Waxy is enabled, but they have a punch out where it is. It's right here. This is the way to get to it. If I click on it, again, as I said before, it's punching out to the Waxy CSU Buy catalog. And it should look like their public site, but just know that the products, the prices are contracted, the CSU contracted products and prices. So maybe I want some carpet cleaner. This is just shopping online. It shouldn't be anything different than you're used to if you, well, I guess everybody probably orders online nowadays. Just know these punch outs are, could be slow. I mean, these are all test punch outs as well. Production will be a lot better. So I'm going to go and I'm going to filter and I'm going to do searches and I'm going to do everything I need to do to find what I need. Maybe I just want one of these right now. Each of these punch outs will look a little and behave a little different. You'll get used to that, I think. The suppliers actually dictate this. They host this, so we don't control it. Go to cart detail. This is all I want. And so what I'm going to do is return the shopping cart. So basically I punched out to Waxy, put something in my cart. I'm going to return the shopping cart. And what that's going to do is build me a cart in CSU Buy with that item in it. So here's my carpet spray, and I could get more detail from it. I can see it's a punch out. Again, this is what you're doing in the marketplace, so hopefully it's familiar. We are defaulting the commodity codes automatically. So you shouldn't, this is important because it's for spend reporting and for workflow as well. We use the commodity code. So we're going to automatically set the commodity code based on what you're ordering. That's all mapped in the system. And now I'm going to start checking out. Here's my deliver to. This is a required field, but because I put it in my profile, it automatically populated for me. Now I can always go in and search and override that. Start looking at this. Say I have this particular order is going to, I don't know, just put fine arts. You can search by either the code or the description. And then I'm going to send this one to fine arts in this case. That's all I want to change here. I'm going to go and check out. That's all I really want. We'll talk about sales tax also, how that's being calculated. Some more fields here that are required are ship to address and billing address. And again, those are populating from my profile. Here's my deliver to, again, same field as before. In here, you can name your cart. So you can have multiple draft carts. Right now, this is a draft cart. You could have multiple draft cart. Only one at a time will be active. And that's the one that you're actually in the, placing the order with. You can activate any draft cart you want. If you want to use draft carts, multiple, you can get to them from here. You view your carts and you'll see all your different draft carts. Once you place this order, your cart goes away. So it's a temporary thing. That cart becomes a requisition, and that's where all the action happens on the approval side. So a few other things to note. Here we'll talk about your blanket order and why you would use that. There are ways to put notes and attachments in here. And you could put as many notes and attachments as you want. Internal versus external basically means internal stays within CSU BY, the supplier does not see it. External means it will be sent with the PO to the supplier. So maybe if you have some specs you want to attach, you could go in here, add your attachment, give it a name if you want, and save it. Because it's external, it will be appended to the PO. If I have just a little internal note here, I don't know, need for storage or something, supplier doesn't care about that, so you're just going to make it internal. And it'll just be an FYI for anybody who looks at this order. Okay, so we have the header information, general information, shipping and billing addresses, PO details, we have attachments. And then we have your line item information, including your commodity code, whether or not it's taxable. And again, that is based on the commodity code. So another thing you don't have to worry about is knowing if something is taxable and what the tax rate is. The system has all that built in. Your tax rates are based on the commodity and the ship to address. And so the system will know that. We'll keep those updated for you. And then another big feature that's not in your P-Card marketplace today is your accounting fields. So you have your fund, your department ID, your account, and your program class, all that. So that your fund and department ID are going to be required. Again, these populated because I have them in my profile. If I didn't, it would not let me submit. This would be grayed out, the submit button. It would tell me at the top, you got to put in your funded department ID. You'll notice your account automatically populates. Don't worry about this field, it's going to go away soon. But your account automatically populates based on the commodity. So the system will know if it's, in this case, custodial supplies, it should be attributed to this account. One less thing for you to have to worry about. Last thing to show on this before I submit it, if I submit it, it becomes, again, that cart goes away, it becomes a requisition, it goes into workflow. That workflow is right here. So you can see what's going to trigger. There's a whole mess of workflow steps that aren't shown here because they're not triggering based on this particular order. This is a low dollar punch out catalog order. Not a lot of approvals needed. You can see There's no buyer involved here. Procurement doesn't have to get involved. All it needs really is a DOA approval. And I could even see who the approvers are going to be. Right, so only one of these folks have to approve it. But at least you can see who's going to be on the hook to approve this based on your DOA structure. Your department ID is the field that dictates your DOA approval. So each department ID has one or more approvers, as well as dollar thresholds of how much they can approve, and all that's built into the system as well. At the end of workflow, and don't worry too much about NoFAC and that kind of thing. Some of these are robots and you don't have to worry about them, but another robot is your create PO. When it gets fully approved, this is the last step it hits. This should say create one or more POs. So this cart can have items from more than one supplier, and will create a requisition with more than one supplier, but the system will automatically separate them into separate POs, one for each supplier, for example, which kind of makes sense, but it happens automatically. And that's the create PO process. I'm going to submit this. This is now a requisition. Tomorrow, if I come here and I want to find that requisition and see where it stands, I can always click on it and find that. Here's my WAXI requisition, click on it and check workflow and see where it stands. What this one is. Review. Anyway, so that's shopping from a punch out and checking out. I went through these already. Okay, shopping using a form now. Sometimes you will need to order something that isn't in a punch-out catalog. Today in the P-Card marketplace, you're limited to punch-outs. In the new world, you're going to CSU BUY is going to provide you with some forms to use, which basically submit a line item and lets you order non-punch-out items or services. So I'll show you how to access them, how to submit them, and how to determine which form to use. And these are some of the available forms that you'll have access to. And I'll show you this in the site. Your main one's probably going to be goods and services. Just make sure when you use this, it doesn't exist. The item doesn't exist in a punch-out catalog. If it doesn't, use goods and services request. If it's a hospitality, obviously there's a form for that as well. Independent contractor, IT stuff. So the idea is we let people order what they want and use workflow to review. So if it's certain hospitality conditions, use that form. Workflow is going to see that and send it to the appropriate person or people to get the right approval for that particular request. Okay. Okay, so as I mentioned, your forms are over here. Goods and services, IT requests, and so forth. I'll go with goods and services since that's kind of the main one. And all the forms have the same format. Start with instructions. The instructions tell you not only when to use this form, but when not to use this form. So you should probably get familiar with that. Basically, it's kind of a wizard. You just keep hitting next. The system will tell you when information is required, like that little exclamation point thing. This is one way to look for suppliers. Any supplier here that you can select is an active supplier. So if you go in here and say, I want to get something from Acme Incorporated, no supplier found, you need to turn towards the supplier request process that I'll show you in a bit. So you can't free text a supplier in here. They have to be set up. Right now, I'm just going to say, let's order from Beckman Coulter. So now I'm going to be faced with a number of fields that are conditional. Star fields are required. So I have to choose one of these. Is it lab supplies, equipment, furniture, so forth? Let me do furniture for now. And the reason why that's important is it's going to dictate questions down the line that I have to answer. The idea is We want to front load all the information that needs to be gathered, both for the supplier and for your approvers now, instead of them having to come back to you to say, okay, what were you wanted, give me more detail. We want to get all that information now before you submit your order. So is it a blanket? No. Is it a renewal? No. So I'm just going to quickly kind of go through these. Does it include performance terms? No. Is there an extended warranty? No. And is it sole source? And sole source, if it's yes, it will trigger certain approval steps based on that fact. So because I chose furniture, I get a furniture page that comes up with, again, some required fields. Provide the details. I need office chairs. If I need an attachment, I could put that in here as well. It could be a quote or specs or whatever I want. Could be a picture of my cat. It really doesn't matter. The system's not going to know. But anything that's significant to the order that could mean something to an approver. Is it for an on-campus location? Yes. Where? Building 1, 2, 3. When will the furniture be delivered? So you can see these are basically all furniture questions. Another chance for an attachment. These forms end up with a similar screen like this. This is where you're putting in your information. So in this case, I'm going to have a $500 office chairs. I'm going to put in my unit of measure. Not a long list here. Usually each would be suffice, but sometimes not. So you might want to put a box or whatever. And then I'm going to say office chairs. If you have a catalog number, put it in there because that'll help the supplier. And again, system knows what you're ordering. So it'll supply the commodity code for you. The only time this doesn't happen is if I say goods other or services other, which you can do if it doesn't fall into one of the other categories. Just know if you do that, you're going to be required to put in a commodity code based on a list of commodity codes that we have put into the system. Okay, when I hit next, I see all green check marks. That means all my required fields are good to go. If there was a field I forgot, it would tell me right here X. I wouldn't be able to put it in my cart. But for now, I'm just going to say add and go to cart. And you'll be able to see it's a line item now. Here's my office chairs. I could always click on the form here to go back and check out my details or change it. Or I can just place my order. So again, making it really easy. My deliver to is already set up. I'm going to proceed to check out. My accounting fields, my ship to, they're all filled out. I just submit my order and I'm done. So that's a goods and services form. I can go into all the other forms and they'll look very similar. Your IT software form, same format, tells you when you should not use the form, has IT related information in it. So if I'm ordering some IT equipment, sure, I can go place my order. Just know, based on the commodity, it's IT commodity, it's going to stop with your IT folks who's going to review it and tell you if it's good or bad, basically if they're going to approve it or not. So all the forms look very similar. When you first get into the site, I suggest kind of going into them. You don't have to submit a cart. You can go into a form, start filling it out, and discard your changes if you want, just so you get familiar with it. Okay, so checkout I kind of already showed you. Just review. Your chart fields are down at the bottom. They're line based, not header based, which means each line item will have their accounting codes, individual accounting codes. You can do splits. I'll show you that next time I place an order. But well, did I place that order? I think I did. But you can do accounting splits. So if you want to do 50% to one fund and 50% to another, you can do that. You do have your required fields, again, all of which can be done through default. If you want them to be, you don't have to, but you can, and it's recommended. Okay, I'll show you. Let me show you quickly how to do a split. So, just go back into Waxy here. I'm just gonna put a cart together real quick. Chose the wrong punch out, I guess. This one's slow. All right, so I'm gonna add this to my cart. Gonna return that back to CSU by. Sorry, the system's a little slow. And say I wanna, I don't know if I would do this with one bottle of floor cleaner, but say I wanted to split this between two funds. And you could do this with department IDs as well. I would go in here to my line items, edit them using this little pencil guy. And here's where you can update them, change to a different fund if you want, or department ID, add a program. For example, your programs are all in here as well. All of them could be searched either by the value or the description. But say I want to add a split here. And there's a little bit of scrolling involved because we do have some bunch of fields. I want to say, how am I going to split it? Percent of price, percent of quantity, amount of price, amount of quantity. I'm going to just say percent of price. I'm going to say 50% goes to this fund, 50% goes to this fund. And then all I have to do then is find my other fund. And again, maybe I'll do library. When I save it, you can see at the bottom here, I have 50% going to this fund, 50% going to this. And you could do more than two if you want to. Know if you're splitting by department ID, there may be two approvers involved at that point. If you have one department ID who has one approver and another department ID who has a different approver, they're both going to have to approve it because you're dealing with both of their funds and they want to approve those. Okay, so that's checking out. I think I kind of showed you that before, the different options you have with the attachments and so forth. And just know you can see full visibility into your workflow as well. Okay, so other forms that we can talk about here. You do have access to a direct pay form. Another, this is also called check request. It's a non-PO invoice, I've heard them called. Basically, you need to pay somebody without a supplier. I'm sorry, without a PO. They shouldn't be a lot of these. Hopefully, everything will go, or most things will go through requisition process and get to a PO, and that'll be just a regular voucher at that point. A direct pay, you know, if you want to pay for something that was never technically ordered through a PO, this is the process you would use. Looks like the other form. Just put in your supplier, add the different fields and submit it. It does go into a cart. Believe it or not, it does need a ship to address. That's just how the system works, even though nothing's getting shipped. But it will go through approvals. It'll create a PO, but the PO won't go to any vendor. It's set not to distribute. And it will automatically create a voucher at the end of the process. So that's a process that's built into the system. Fill out the form, put it in your cart, submit it, and it goes through approvals, creates a PO, bypasses distribution to supplier, and automatically creates a voucher. There's a whole voucher workflow involved as well on the AP side that will trigger at that point. And there's also a different type of form that does not create a line item in a cart. The request to close or reopen a PO, scenario being maybe I have a blanket order for 10 grand. I've used up $8,000 of it. I know I'm not going to use up the rest. As an end user, you are not able to close a PO. Only a buyer can do that. So what this form does is it asks you a few questions. What's your PO number? Who's your supplier? Just to make sure we got the right PO. As for justification, why do you want this closed? When submitted, it goes right to a buyer who can evaluate it and see if it's good to go, they will close the PO for you. And let me show you those real quick. So these forms are with the others. Here's your direct pay is right here. And again, shows you when not to use it, gives you your supplier fields, and here are your form fields. So here's some reasons why you might need to do a direct pay. You know, maybe you have, you know, utility bills to pay or a credit card bank statement or something like that. So, you know, these are some instances of when you would need it. It does require some sort of documentation, a receipt, an invoice, something like that. It also requires an invoice date and an invoice number. Typically, you would have a statement number, I would think. If not, it gives you a little direction here what to use. The reason these are required is, as I said before, this is automatically going to, at the end of approvals, it's automatically going to transfer itself into a voucher, and voucher requires these two fields. Okay. So you submit it, goes into a cart and so forth. The process is just like any commodity at that point that you're ordering, as far as checking out. The other one, showed you the screenshot, I'll just go into it. Very simple form that does not create a line item in a cart. It's just a routable form. And here's, you know, do I want to reopen a PO or do I want to close a PO? Here's my simple fields. It couldn't get more simple in this form. PO number, supplier name, why do I want it reopened or closed? When it gets submitted, it just goes right to either Bianca or Marina. You know, in tests. Basically, it's going to go to a buyer who will look at your information and do what you need to do if they approve. So that's a routable form that does not create a cart, but it is there so that you don't have to do anything outside the system. Everything should be right here for you on the home page that you need to do. Well, hopefully that's the idea. So assigning a shopping cart. Let's see, how long do we have in this? This is to 2:30. Okay. Sorry, I'm on the East Coast. So assigning a shopping cart, I'm not sure if you guys are going to do a lot of this, but it is available. You don't have to. I don't think we're using the shoppers. I'll mention what's the difference between a shopper and a requester. I hit on that before. But you still can assign a shopping cart. There's reasons why you might want to do this. So we'll identify when to assign a cart to another user, how that's done. Prepared by, prepared for. If we're really paying attention in the checkout screen, you probably saw these two fields. Important kind of to know the difference between the two. Prepared for is the person who started the cart. So if I go and put an item into my cart, I'm automatically the prepared for person. I could also be the prepared by. If I'm a requester and I have access to submit that cart into requisition, I'm both the prepared for and the prepared by. However, if I put a cart together and I decide, you know, Bianca should see it, I could assign my cart to Bianca. She could edit the cart as she wants to, and she could submit it. In that case, I'm the prepared for. She would be the prepared by. The prepared by is the person who actually hit that submit button. So they can be the same person, just so you know, the owner of the PO that eventually gets created or multiple POs is the prepared for. That's the person who originally started the cart. They're going to become eventually the PO owner, as well as the voucher owner, which will become a little bit more important when we talk about voucher approvals. So how to assign? Oh, good, I got a cart built already. So when I go to build a cart, I have my line item in here, I can go and check out, or you can see there's an assign button. That assign button's also on the checkout screen. What I mentioned before, you're prepared for, prepared by are going to be right here. This can update as soon as I hit submit. You know, if I didn't create this cart and somebody assigned it to me, I would, the prepared by would change. But in this case, because I'm submitting it as well, I'm both. But I do have the option to assign it to somebody else. The scenario for this, I think, Maria, Bianca, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think you guys are using shoppers. The difference between a shopper and a requester is a shopper cannot assign the cart. You guys aren't using that, is that right, Marina?
Yeah, that's correct. We're not using Shopper. The requesters have the ability to assign the cart to someone else if there's some other internal process that they've determined. For example, an analyst needs to review it before submission to the approver.
Yeah, or you want to do a consolidation, you know, you want to get all your office supplies in one order or something like that, pass it around. You could assign the cart as many times as you want. When you do that, it's going to ask you who you want to assign the cart to. And it's going to give you, if you just hit search, it's going to give you everybody within the Bakersfield as far as who you can assign it to, and say I want to assign it to this guy. You can also put, oh, by the way, this search you can actually put in your profile. I don't know if I showed this as a default. If you want to do this a lot, you can put a default requester in here as well, so it's easier to search. That's what that does. Can you order this if we need it? So maybe they're going to check the stock room and make sure. When I assign it, I'm basically I've given that draft cart over to, it wasn't submitted yet. I gave it over to that person who will be notified. Hopefully they'll have their notifications turned on and they'll be immediately notified, hey, there's a cart that just got assigned to you. That person owns the cart at that point. And excuse me, and they can actually add items, they can take away items, they can change your accounting fields, they own it. They'll get an email like this. Do you see this email? And if not, you just let me know. But they'll immediately get this. This is one of those notifications coming from, email notifications coming from CSU by a shopping cart's been assigned to you, who it was assigned by, and it even gives you a little link right here. So if I click this, the single sign-on will log me right into CSU by and put me right into that cart, so you don't have to go looking for it. You could also see the little note here that they put. So that's pretty instant. All the notifications are not queued or anything like that. They happen right away. So at this point, bill approver would own the cart. You'd update it and submit it for you. Okay, so I mentioned before, if you're in a form and you don't have your supplier available, what do you do? There's a supplier request process. So this is how this is used. It's another form. A process is you go into CSU by, you'd find a new supplier request form. You'd fill it out and submit it. The system knows where to route it. It routes to the supplier management. I think it goes to a buyer first, and then it goes to a supplier management team. If approved, there's a process to onboard that supplier. You know, the supplier is invited, they register within CSU by themselves for so that they could update their own profile. There's a whole approval process involved there as well. There, after that supplier is available, somebody should notify you that, okay, you can go and shop from that supplier now. Typically, this isn't a punch out. This would be a forms related or non-catalog supplier when this happens. Here is under your quick links is your form. I'll show you that in a minute. And yeah, this is just a few screenshots of what we're going to see. So from your homepage, here's your quick link to request new supplier. Another form, again, a form that does not route to, it does not create a cart. It's a routable form that uses a certain workflow. So say Acme Incorporated was the supplier I wanted before. I'm going to put them in here, and when I submit it, it's going to ask me for more information. So I go and start filling out this. Again, as I said before, all these forms have the similar format, like a little wizard kind of thing. Starts with instructions, and then it gives me some questions. All right, what products and services do I anticipate they're going to provide? They're going to provide widgets to the best of my knowledge to them. So all these are basically custom CSU questions. Is there an employee supplier relationship? Yes or no? I'm gonna hit no. How often? I'm gonna do it occasionally, use these folks. I can put a comment to the supplier that will be included because they're gonna get an invitation to register, as I said, if they're accepted as a new supplier. So I could put a note in there. I don't have to. Also going to say what campuses should use this, and obviously you're going to put Bakersfield. If you know that San Luis Obispo is going to also use it, you could check that. Chances are you might not know that. If you don't, that's fine. That could be changed later. What type of supplier is this? Is it a company or a person, basically? So this is a company. And then my final is required field is a contact. And the reason I need this is because we need a valid email address to send, well, not we, your supplier management team needs a valid email address to send the invite to. So this is going to be Joe Smith, and his email is jsmith@acme.com. Oops, try and spell it right. I'm gonna hit next, and I'm done, basically. I don't know, this is just informational to the buyer and the supplier management team. If I hit next, it's going to say, okay, I'm all done. Do I certify this is all true? There is no employee supplier relationship, all that kind of stuff. Can't submit it without checking that. You can also see before you submit it where it's going to go. So it's going to go to a campus review first. Again, in this case, some buyers are going to look at it. And then if they approve it as a new supplier, they're good with it, it's automatically going to route to a supplier management team who handles all your supplier onboarding and your approvals and all that stuff on the supplier side. Okay. So basically complete the request and you're done. Hopefully there's be some communication. Unfortunately, the system will not tell you when the supplier is set up. I think there's going to be communication process involved with the supplier management team and the end user to let you know when they're ready to go. But at least this is a way to do it within the system. You don't have to know who to send that request to. Let the system dictate that for you. It's already set up. Okay. All right, so reordering. There'll be an occasion or two when you want to place an order that you placed 2 months ago. You want to place the same order. So it's just handy, especially when it's a complicated form, goods and services, you had to answer a dozen questions, you don't remember all that kind of stuff. You want to just reorder something. So I'll show you how to find a previous order and how to add those items to your cart. So this is just basically could be a requisition, could be a PO. And in this case, I wanted to reorder these services without having to create this form from scratch. I go and find the order, I check it, and I add to my active cart. I'll show you that. So maybe a little while back, I went and ordered some printing services, for example. I can actually, if I know the supplier or the date or anything like that, I can start filtering this down, or I could just click printing services and it'll find it for me. So you can actually put in some text as long as it's typed right, of what you ordered, as well as using any of these filters. So here, I remember, back at the end of January, I placed this order for printing services to Boone Printing. I'm going to open this order, and this is a PO, but you can do it with requisitions too. And then from down here, if you want, you can always click on this to verify, is this the right one? This gets you into the form, right? Start looking at this and all that. And yeah, this is exactly what I wanted. I want to reorder it. Sorry, my system's slowing down all of a sudden. If I go back to that PO, I should be able to, nope, this one's soft closed, isn't it? Shoot, I picked the wrong one. I think this one's locked down at the moment. Let me try a different one. Check it and just hit add to active cart. And that'll just bring over that form, all the information. I think the supplier was inactivated in test, but anyway, theoretically, trust me, this is how it works. That'll bring all of that form information over to your new cart. Now, just know you cannot do this with punch out items. There's reasons for that. Mainly punch out items we can't control. It's done by the supplier. It's maintained by the supplier. If they have changed the price or if they made something no longer available, the system will not prevent you from ordering it, and it'll fail when it tries to submit that PO. So punch out items are locked down, so you can't do this. But in the case of a form, goods and services or IT or whatever, you can do a reorder this way. Okay, so moving on to blankets. When the big thing to me, at least, is when to use a blanket. The easy part is how to identify an order as a blanket, but I've found a lot of the times with other clients and all the blankets are kind of used when they don't have to be. And it's really important for you to know when to use a blanket. Basically, it's when there's goods and or services that require multiple invoices, multiple vouchers, multiple payments, that kind of thing. You basically can specify very easily that something's a blanket. It's just a check of a box. Just know it changes the way things are done on the AP side. Most of the time, POs will auto close themselves when they're fully vouchered based on quantity. So if I ordered 5 widgets, I've been invoiced for 5 widgets, the PO will close itself. If I specify that it's a blanket order, if I ordered 5 widgets and it's a blanket, I could get vouchered, I could get invoiced for 10 widgets. It won't matter. It's going to be the price it looks at, the total price. So if I ordered $10,000 worth of services, I made it a blanket, I can keep adding more and more vouchers, getting more and more vouchers in from the supplier. It's not going to worry about the quantity. It's going to just look at that $10,000. So that's really what this does. I'm sorry, I didn't make this bigger. Here you go. How to specify it? There's a couple ways. One of them is in the form, the goods and services form. The other one's in actually the checkout screen. Again, if you were looking, you might have seen it. Let me show you what it looks like. So in the goods and services, for example, just gonna go right there. Here it is. Very simple. Is it a blanket? Yes or no? So let me show you a couple things here. I'm gonna go to other. I'm gonna say services other. This is a blanket. No. And then it's gonna ask me, because I said other, it's gonna say, what do I want? Maybe I want landscaping surfaces. I hit next, it's gonna ask my cost details. I'm gonna say it's gonna be $10,000. One. Says I want to, now it's gonna give me start and end dates for the services. I'm gonna say it's gonna start next Monday and end, I don't know, in May. One thing, I might not have a catalog number, that's fine, but you see the commodity code. This is the only time you'll ever have to fill out a commodity code because I said other. And so if I hit edit, this is what your commodity code structure looks like. You can see it's a parent-child kind of thing, a 2-level hierarchy. I can't choose supplies, I have to choose under the supplies or services, for example. If I'm not sure where it is, I can say just type the word in and it'll show me the commodity codes with that word in it. But again, this is important because it's going to also dictate not only the workflow, impact workflow, and impact spend reporting, but it's also going to dictate what the account is for this line item. I hit next. And I didn't even put a supplier in, did I? So it shows you, I can't submit it yet because I didn't put a supplier in. And I'll use that guy. So now I could review and I should be able to add it to my cart. So if I go to my checkout screen, we were talking about blankets and I specified it in my form, but you can also specify it here. They do the same thing. If you specify it in one place but not the other, it's going to default as it is a blanket. So if one or the other is checked, it'll be a blanket order. Just know when to place a blanket and when it's appropriate. Know that anything that's off catalog like this, like a goods and services, it's not a punch out. It will trigger a procurement review. That means it's basically going to route to a buyer in workflow. So let's talk about workflow a little bit. This again is something you're probably not used to because we haven't been using it in the P-card marketplace. It's a huge part of CSU buy to get the approvals instead of sending paper forms or calling, or doing emails to get approvals. We have it all built in. So I'm going to explain what the workflow is all about. And here we're talking about requisition workflow for the most part. This busy little slide shows some of the possible steps that can trigger for a given order. Again, none of this will never be an order where all of these, will trigger, but maybe one or two, or maybe three or four, depending on the conditions. I mean, I think pretty much all orders will go through DOA approval. That's again based on your department ID, and your department and your approver or spend limits and all that. And then you have a lot of commodity based approvals. If it's an IT software, IT hardware, IT commodity, it's going to stop by IT review, facilities and so forth, catering. You'll see procurement is down here. Your buyers, unless it's a low dollar punch out order, your buyers will want to look at it. If you're ordering a $25 waxy rug cleaner from the punch out, your procurement folks won't want to see it, so it'll bypass that step. At the end of workflow, it's going to create one or more POs. Again, more POs if you have multiple suppliers or multiple ship to addresses. The system knows to split them up. Marina, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to add, all the workflows that are listed here are available in Procure to Pay. Remember, this is eventually going to be a global system that all campuses are going to utilize. However, campuses have the option to turn off some of these workflows if they're not required, or we have a different process in place. So there are some workflows that we won't be using in the system, but this is just a list of all the available workflows that exist.
That's a good point. Yeah, because all the universities are going to be using the same workflow. Whether or not they trigger depends on your particular university's business process. Okay, so again, I showed you in your checkout screen how you can see where your requisition is going to be routing. This is very dynamic. As you change your cart around, you might see these change based on dollar amounts and department IDs and commodities and all that. When you submit it, that's basically the workflow it's going to use going forward, whatever steps have triggered. There is a validation step you'll see. It's an automated robot basically that sends the requisition information. It's the first thing it does really. It sends the requisition information to CFS to see, things like, it's a valid user? Is it a valid chart string and that kind of thing? Just to make sure it's going, it's acceptable from that point of view. If it doesn't like it for whatever reason, it's going to return it back to you with a little message as to why. Most times it's just going to pass that little test and move on in workflow. Okay, so what do approvers do? I know most folks here are non-approvers. In fact, we have an approver class here training in a couple hours, I guess. These are a few things they can do. So if something, maybe I'm a DOA approver and something, my department ID was used and it hits my approval queue, what can I do? Of course, you get notified. You can see it in your approval queue. That they can do, they could always add comments to the requisition. They could approve, they can reject, they could return, they could forward it to another person. There's a bunch of things they can do. I mean, ideally, they're going to like what they see. They're going to approve it. It takes them takes that order out of their approval queue, and it moves on in workflow. So comments are key, I think, in CSU BY. And to you guys too, not only to approvers. So a scenario would be maybe, let's go into the system. Maybe I go into an order that I placed that's sitting here pending. And, I placed this order, 5 days ago, and I want to see, I need this, what is it? Just cleaning stuff pretty soon. I go in here and I see, okay, it's in this review step, and either Bianca or Marina needs to approve it, but they're not moving on it. Or if I just have a question. From within the requisition, I can use comments and add a comment and say, can you approve this? Need it this weekend. And I can then put who I want to send that to. So I'm going to send it to Bianca. I could send it to more than one person also. If I do have a file, I could even put that in. It'll add it as an attachment. When I hit check, so it adds this comment to this order, not only under the comments, but you'll see every transaction has a history, and it adds it to the history as well. Bianca gets an email, and in that email, it has my comments, but a link right back into this requisition. So you keep, so she doesn't have to go hunting it down. So you keep all the comments within the system, not only for historical purposes, but to make them easy for the recipient to find the document you're talking about, in this case, requisition. So this is under the approval section. It doesn't have to be, it's for everybody. Comments, as long as you can get to the order, it doesn't even have to be your order. You can add a comment. So what approvers do, they can put the request on hold if they're looking, if they're investigating something. Again, add comments. Approve, return, reject. Approve is pretty obvious. A return is different than a reject in that they both send it. You're basically saying you don't approve of it, basically. But reject does not allow the end user to resubmit it. Well, return does. I think return is probably going to be used more often, hopefully. Reject is kind of harsh. Return allows the end user to edit basically comes a draft card again, but it allows them to edit it and resubmit it. So say something got to my approval and I noticed they have the wrong project on there or the wrong fund. As an approver, I can't change that. But what I can do is return it with a little comment back to the end user. Say, hey, can you change the fund to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and resubmit? End user gets that note, gets a link back to that cart. They change the fund and resubmit it. When they resubmit it, it starts workflow from the beginning. If you reject it, it means you really don't want to give that end user the ability to resubmit it. So all they do is get a reject and it becomes a dead document. Basically, they can't do anything with it. So that's what approvers can do. hopefully the approval process is streamlined enough that things won't take a long time. The goal of all this is to get it approved and get it to one or more POs. And again, that happens at the end of requisition workflow. We have 7 or 8 different workflows in the system. The main one for shopping is requisition workflow. There is a PO workflow as well, which is basically automated. There really very rarely any manual approvals there. It basically does things like finalizes the PO, sends it out to the supplier, sends that PO to CFS. You know, all these different robots are in place to move things along. By the time it gets to a PO, it's already been fully approved. So we'll talk about here distribution and how you can see your order status. So there's several ways for POs to get distributed, and this is really just FYI. You shouldn't have to be concerned. In fact, you shouldn't really even have to care how your PO is going to get sent to the supplier. There is a process for handling PO distribution issues, which are rare, but they can happen. This is really just as an FYI for you folks to know that things will be handled. Punch outs, if it's a punch out order, it's going to be sent to the supplier through a database connection called CXML. Know that if you're sending an order through a punch out catalog, if you put external notes and attachments in there, likely they're not going to be seen because it's basically the CSU by computer talking to the, I don't know, waxy computer, and that's how it's all processed. There's nobody involved as far as person to read that that attachment. Some, you know, for the non-punch outs, they'll typically go email or fax, and that is part of the supplier setup. The supplier will be asked how you want your POs sent out. If they say email, they're going to give us an email address, and we're going to put that into the profile. So when it gets to that part in the PO process, the system knows exactly where to send it. Once in a while, there'll be an issue with that. Maybe it's they want it faxed and the fax machine's down. There's a process involved. You don't have to be involved in that. There's several people that are going to know that there's an issue, and they're going to work on it and work with the supplier. Again, you shouldn't have to worry. Once you submit your order, know that the approvals will happen as they should. The PO will be sent out as it should. And you just go about your day without worrying about it. So I told you how to search for POs, but I did want to show you how to identify the status of the PO. This is a little funky, something to get used to what the PO status means compared to what an AP status is. Again, this is just a screenshot of the search functionality. So let me go into that. When I look at POs, whenever I see PO status here, it means has it completed PO workflow. Now, when you go into production, and this is test, so we have some pending, this will always be pretty much completed. It doesn't mean the PO is closed. It just means it's completed the PO workflow process, which again is an automated process. It'll be pending for very few seconds, and then it'll be completed very quickly. So this is kind of a useless little column, to be honest, if you're not an administrator. What you're more concerned with, if you go into the PO, into the status screen, is this PO status, which is a little bit counterintuitive because they both have the same name. This is whether the PO is opened or closed. So this is the completed, it's completed workflow. It will pretty much always be completed. This will tell you if it's an opened or closed PO. Again, if it's a closed PO, you want it open, there's a request process for that. You can see here in the history, in this case, it was a punch out. It was sent CXML. This basically gives you a history of what happened with the PO. You know, it was created by the system once it was fully approved. And then, you know, a few of these automated processes happened. You can see when it was sent to the supplier and so forth. You could see the same on the requisition side. In fact, it'll include who approved it and when, and you know, even down to the time and second that they approved it. The history is kind of nice if you want to know what happened with something. Okay, so let's go into a little bit of the AP side of receiving. And when you will be needed for this process. So identify the types of items that need a receipt. Some do, some don't. The ones that don't, there's another process that involves you folks. So determine where things will be received. In your case, a goods order will be received typically at central receiving. Maybe there's some exceptions to that, furniture, whatever. Most of the items will be received at central receiving. There are cost and quantity receipts. Services will have cost receipts. I'll show you the process for doing all this. Yeah. So as I mentioned, goods require a receipt. That's called a three-way match in AP terms. Central receiving will typically do that. So if you order some copy paper, you're going to put a deliver to address in there. The supplier doesn't see that. They see central receiving is where they ship it. And central receiving receives it. They create the receipt and then they deliver it to you guys. If it's a service or a blanket, it's going to be a two-way match, which means it doesn't need receipt. So what happens there is in lieu of receipt, we're going to ask you to approve the voucher. And your approval means you have received that service. So that happens when the voucher is received. It's part of the voucher workflow. And it is sent to the PO owner, which is, again, the person who created the cart in the first place. The system knows that it's a service and it needs to be sent to that person for verification. Again, they don't want to pay anything unless it was received. So in this case, we're talking receiving services. So what does that look like is, again, on your homepage. So again, we try and put everything in your homepage as possible. My approvals for requesters is basically going to just be voucher approvals. These are vouchers that for services that I placed or that I started. Anything in here is it's a voucher waiting for my approval. So if I click on one, see, it looks very familiar. I mean, this is a voucher. Looks similar to a PO, looks similar to a requisition, just more information and payment related information. Got a link here to my PO or requisition in case I need it to review. Again, I have comments. I have some things like attachments as well that are on the other documents, but others that are not, like matching tax details. They mean more to AP, but if you ever want to see it, you can. There's also voucher workflow. So however we receive this invoice in from the supplier, and there's about 6 or 7 different ways that we get vouchers or invoices in from suppliers, and invoices create vouchers in the system. They all go into workflow. You'll see one of the first steps is it needs to verify received, which means it's a service and we're not paying this voucher until I say, as the end user, that I've received this service. So in this case, what is it? What did we order? Yeah, we ordered some legal services for $7,500. The voucher came in. If I haven't received my services, maybe, in 3 days they're coming in and they're gonna, advise me or whatever the legal folks do. I could sit on this. I could put it on hold. Place voucher on hold. I can do that, or I can complete it. If I want to put it on hold, I could put a little comment that says, waiting for services that are going to be completed on the 18th. If I've received these services already, it's very simple. I just hit approve and I'm done. So now if I look at that voucher, it's out of my queue. I only have one left in my queue, I believe. I think I had 2, but I'll see both in the workflow. See, I can see I approved it and now it's an AP review. So it's moving down. Again, the goal is to get it to okay to pay, which means the check's going to get sent out and the check's going to get written. My history, I could see exactly when I approved it. Most people, I don't care when I approved it. I think other people might want to know when I approved it. But that's basically saying, yes, I received my services. I'm good if you pay this. And then there's some more workflow steps that might trigger based on, again, the vouchers. There's a whole voucher approval process. I return back to my home page. Now I only have one in my queue. The idea is try and keep this empty if possible. If I didn't receive a service, obviously you don't want to approve this because there's a chance that once I approve it, it's going right out to pay and all of a sudden I'm paying for something I didn't get. So that's the process for services. Again, goods, if it's something from, computers or office supplies or cleaning supplies, whatever, you don't have to worry about this. It's going to be done through central receiving. They're going to create a voucher, a receipt. Towards the end here, let's see what else. Okay, reporting, I think it's our last topic, which I've already gone into for a bit. We're going to go a little bit deeper into it. Again, just to show you the flexibility and the visibility of everything. You can do searches off any of these things. Requisitions, POs, receipts, vouchers, suppliers as well. And yeah, just a couple of screenshots. Again, all look pretty similar. There's also this is handy because if you ever have suppliers calling you saying, hey, this PO, I don't know if it's been paid yet. Can you look it up? Can you tell me if it's been paid? You might have to go to AP today to ask that question. Now we have that within CSU by. The process being a voucher gets fully approved, it gets sent out to CFS to get paid. When it gets paid, that payment information comes back into that voucher in CSU by and is visible to you, visible to anybody who can get that voucher. And it captures things like, how was it paid? What the check number was and all that. That's payment status. So let me look at, that's payment information. I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. But you're searching. Again, I'm going to go right back into, let me search POs. I mentioned all the filters over here on the left, right? There's a lot of them. These are just quick filters. You can use any of these. The idea is you want to narrow this down. Right now, 37 is not a big deal, but when it's 37,000 POs, you're going to want to filter them down. You could use any of these filters here. Those aren't all of them. There's more here under add filter. If I want to do it, filter these down by maybe department ID, I can do that, or by fund. If I want to do it by form name or, well, basically any of these, you can do that. So say in this case, I wanted to show all Dell orders for, take a chance here. I'm not sure when these are going to be for, but for last month, are there any? Yeah, okay, there's one. That's just quite simple. Filtering last month, Dell, so forth. You can do it. There's probably gonna be more than this eventually. As an end user, you might not like these columns. You can change them. Now, when I change it, it's just gonna change it for POs, but I can have it so it remembers it next time. So with this little gear here, if I click on this, it shows me on the right side what columns I have, and it gives me on the left side what columns I can add. The check means it's already added. PO status, as I mentioned, doesn't mean a lot. I'm going to get rid of it, right? AP status might mean more to me because that's whether or not the PO is closed or open. I could not only add it, but move it to wherever I want to, by just kind of doing this. So this is just moving it for myself. If I like this format and I want it to come up every time, you want to pin columns as my defaults. That'll remember it next time. So when I hit apply, you can see it replaced the PO status with the AP status. And next time I get into my search POs, it's going to remember my columns as they are. Okay. Something else I can do from here is I can do a save as. Say I want to run this report every month, and I don't want to have to go, this is very simple, only 2 different filters, but maybe I have 6 or 7 different filters. I don't want to have to do that over and over again every month. I can save my search. I can create a personal folder. In this case, I already have one called monthly reports. I can always add a new one just to categorize them. And I could say Dell orders from last month. Put it in my monthly reports. And next time I come in and go into my PO search, I can go to my searches and I can see my Dell orders from last month. I click on it. It uses the same filters, but freshens the data for me. So it's kind of handy in that regard. If you're running the same searches, multiple times, you don't have to go and remember, how did I do that search before? Again, this search is just available to me as the end user. Nobody else can see it. That works for requisitions, vouchers, receipts, so forth. They all work the same as far as the searches go. I think the last thing is the voucher payment information I kind of mentioned. Getting that information to you instead of you having to get on the phone with AP or something. This is the kind of information that's sent back into CSU BUY and attached to the voucher itself. I'll show you this in the system as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to search my vouchers. In this case, I want to see one that's paid, right? Because that'll have payment information. So I'm going to use my quick filters. Go down to, let's even look at, pay status. I'm going to say, show me all the ones that are paid. This only gives me one right now. Might have more. Let's see. I'm going to choose all. Yeah, some of them are older than 90 days. And what I can do, say I want to, the supplier says, okay, I have this invoice number 69874 about, all that. I could look it up that way and just pull it up. So, there's 2 voucher numbers. Well, 2 numbers in a voucher. One is an internal number. The other one is the supplier's number. So when they're calling, they're probably going to reference either the PO number or the voucher number. You could look up either one here. If I click on it and open the voucher, over here is the payment information. It might say in process, which means it hasn't been paid yet. In this case, it's been paid. If it's been paid, it should have information like, how was it paid? By check. What's the check number? What's the check date? What's the amount? So you can basically say to the supplier, yeah, we did send you a check out on the 31st of January. This is the check number. It was for this amount, without having to go and talk to AP about it. And that's as long as it's paid. If it's not paid, it will tell you. This will just be blank. It'll say in process or pending, I believe, I think. All right. So what do we talk about here? We talked about system intro, goods receivings, purchase order. Yeah, so we think we hit all this stuff. I'm going to leave it to Mariana and or Bianca if you guys wanted to add anything here, because I think we're pretty much done. Here's our support again. I showed you this before, and that's it for the presentation.
Thank you, Chris. So I know this is a lot of information that you've been provided and a lot of information to retain. We are working on guides to assist you. There are little training videos that we will be putting on our website. In addition, we will have office hours post hypercare or in hypercare after we go live, and as well as the campus will continue to provide training after this initial session. So be be aware of that. Look on our website. I also wanted to share procurement and AP are working on a guide that's going to have a glossary of terms because I know some of the language and verbiage is changing from CFS to P2P, and I know some of you may not be familiar with some of the terminology that we've thrown out here. So we're preparing that guide, and then we also will have a section on what's new in P2P to kind of highlight the changes that we're making for particular steps that we had existing and what will change in procure to pay. So hopefully that will assist you guys, so that way you don't have to have copious notes that you're taking and provide at a glance information to you. So you can always reach out to us if you have additional questions. We've created a campus group email for specifically for P2P, and that is csub@csub.edu. I did want to introduce our campus facilitators. So for procurement, that will be Bianca Woolgamuth and Julie Jones. And for accounts payable, that will be Becky Lappin and Tina Livingston. So, I know this is going to be a big lift for the campus, and there's going to be some bumps along the way, but we'll all work together to make it through it. Know this system is also new for procurement to start utilizing. So we're all going to kind of learn together once we're actually in production and live. So feel free to reach out to us if you have any additional questions. This session has been recorded and will be posted to the campus CSU by website, so you can view it at a later time, or if you know of any folks that missed this session and would like to see it. That's all
Marina,
I've got.
did we mention when we are going live? I don't know if I missed that.
I put it in the chat, but we are going live March the 26th, so pretty much 2 weeks from today. And I do encourage everybody to attend. The Controller's Office is working on the year-end memo that will be submitted out to campus soon, and there will be training sessions for year-end as some of the processes, especially for procurement and AP, may be changing. Well, we know for sure procurement will be changing in procure to pay, so we will cover blankets, annual renewals, future year requisitions and purchase orders in those sessions. Any other questions, comments? All right, that seems to be it. Thank you, everybody. And again, we are here to help you. Bye, everybody.